Oh, I think we're live. Happened faster than I thought. Hey, everybody, welcome to DevStream number 14 for Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign. We are really excited to be back at the new year in 2021. I have my favorite, well, I'm not going to say favorite guest because that would be mean to the other guests, but I have my fun-loving Bulgarian friend with me today, Alex. Alex, how are you doing today?
Oh, great. It was high time to get some rest and some family time. So uh, I feel a lot better now, actually. And we are ready to complete the game and right now talk some more about it.
Yeah,
Ho-
2021 hopefully is going to be an exciting year for all of us. So before we get
yes.
started, I want to give a little bit of a warning to everyone. I have some, Christmas hardware, some new hardware in, and it's been a little bit temperamental. I've had a few instability issues. I've been slowly fixing them, and I thought things were doing pretty good, and then I've unfortunately crashed twice during the pre-stream setup. I reverted to settings from a couple days ago, and hopefully things will be stable. But if I do happen to blow up randomly, Alex will be a great host for a little bit while I come back online. So we'll see how that goes. But it's great to be back in 2021 and talking with you guys. I think 2021 is going to be a super exciting year for Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign. So it's really fun to. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. How was your holiday, Alex? You had a good Christmas and New Year?
Yeah, just a bit more limited than compared to other years.
Yeah, right.
We weren't brave enough to celebrate with our families. But yeah, just small companies with younger people who are very healthy, and but that was kind of a good thing because we got a really good rest that way. Not a lot
Yeah,
of party.
yeah, we had the same kind of thing around here. It was, we didn't travel or anything. We stayed at home, just kind of spent time with me and my significant other. And I know her and I went out to an outdoor location for New Year's. It was cold for like 30 minutes, just when it hit midnight, just to be like, oh, okay, we're social distance and we're outside and we're all bundled up, so we're not doing anything risky, but at least it feels a little normal for like a little bit. And then after the new year turned over, we're like, all right, time to go back home. Like we're trying to keep safe and everything. So it's yeah,
It's romantic in a way.
yeah, in a way it was. I played a lot of video games during the break, so that was fun. Been trying to try to take some advantage of the time off. But it's good to be back and back in the saddle. Hopefully, everyone else had a really good holiday out there too. You guys want to post any of your holiday fun? Would love to hear what you guys did for your holidays, or if you had any fun games you guys played during the break. Yeah, it'd be awesome to hear about that. So we have a fun stream today. I think we're talking about opinions. I'm sure, and I already saw in the responses in the Dev Diary, people already were very opinionated about opinions. So that was fun to see.
Yeah, indeed. I also read the comments, and there were some really interesting discussions. I hope that we will have enough time for questions and we can discuss some of those topics.
Yeah,
Uh,
I actually it was one of the more I saw Besso got involved a little bit in one of the conversations, and I actually found it very interesting because this is one of the conversations that I felt me reading was actually one of the more productive. There was some really interesting points about some of the different class tiers and everything, which we'll get into in a little bit. And I thought that was this is why we do these dev streams to a certain degree, and it's why we have the community site. So I'm really it's awesome to see some of that healthy conversation going on. By the way, if you haven't joined, we'd love to have you in our community. It's community.knightsofhonor.com. I'm sure someone will post it into the chat, and it's a great place to come and connect with us. The dev diaries that we post always go up on there. You get a chance to read them and participate in the conversation. And we always take questions from the community during the stream at the end from the dev diaries. So it'd be great to have you guys join and participate in that conversation there. I'm seeing some people post about things that they did over their holidays. I see some people. Someone said they played Wastelands 3. I played a little bit of that. That was a fun game. Hi to Turkey. That's awesome. Barnyard. The Blob. Actually, so I feel a little bit out of it. I'm not familiar with the Blob. What's that? I need to look it up. Are you familiar with that game?
I haven't. I haven't seen
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Okay, the Blob. I'll have to look. The Blob 4. I'll have to look that up. So, well, let's get into it. We have some awesome topics to go through today on the Opinions Diary. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So today we're talking about the new Opinions feature. This is a brand new feature for Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign. We had a lot of. We'll go through all the details. If you haven't read the Dev Diary, Dev Diary 14 is up on our site, community.knightsofhonor2.com. So why don't we just kind of jump right into the high level topic of this whole thing? So what is Opinions? What is this feature?
What we aimed to do with this feature is to represent the reaction of the people in a kingdom towards the actions of the player. And there was something very minor in this direction, which was the kingdom power in the previous game. But right now we wanted a bit more depth. It's very hard to explain this feature because it is. We don't want to overdo this. We don't want to make it as complex as in City Builder, for example, or something like that. But more significant than the previous game. And as I read the comments, I'm not sure that we have presented it very clearly. So probably now we can share more light on it, and people can understand it better. It's just enough complex to differentiate different classes of people in your kingdom. They have reactions on different events and different effects. Their opinion can pretty much be positive and negative, and this affects a lot of aspects in the kingdom's economy and so on.
Yeah, so to clarify for some people that maybe are new to Knights of Honor 2, there was a feature from the first game, Knights of Honor, that was called Kingdom Power, and it basically was kind of a representation of I guess how I wouldn't just say stable, but it represented the strength of your kingdom's identity to a certain degree. So certain actions like breaking a diplomatic a relationship in a bad way, or doing something that really wasn't honorable as Knights of Honor could reduce your kingdom power. There were also some things that could raise it. You could purchase to raise it with gold. It kind of reset to a stability level over time. And that feature is still there. We've renamed it, I believe, so it has a new title to it. It's called
we now call it Crown Authority.
Yeah, Crown Authority, right?
It has
so it's still there. It still has very similar. You're going to recognize it if you're a Knights of Honor fan. But the Opinions feature set was kind of an extension of this idea to add more depth and more interest and more gameplay to the concept.
Yeah, one major difference between those is that you cannot simply increase the opinion of the people
right,
just by spending some gold or clicking a button. So it's something that you must try not to lose, because you cannot easily recover it. And
I see some people, by the way, in chat. I saw Athomix and Kenelor already talking about release date. So just to circle in on that in the beginning of this stream, so that we get the conversation topic out of the way. We talked about the release date in our stream right before the holidays started, and all we know is we've moved it to 2021, but we never want to commit exactly to what season or what time frame, mainly because we want to give the game all the time it needs to grow and flourish and become the best version of itself it can. It's a philosophy we have here at THQ Nordic, and Alex and the team have been really working hard to make it a great game. And it's with these kind of grand strategy large games, all games need their time, but they're so complicated sometimes you don't even really know what's going on until you've gotten things implemented and you're playing it and you're testing it, and that can open up there's a gap here, and even when you do all your best and you have some teams out there that are very good at making these kind of strategy games, you still release it and are surprised sometimes by things that don't work the way you want. So we're doing our best to let the team have the time they need to really make it the best game it can be for you guys. We're obviously, last year we were hoping it would be in 2020, and That was a hope for ours and a target, but it needed more time, and so now we're in 2021, and you'll probably tell we're getting closer because you'll see a lot more footage and things are getting more detailed, and then we'll talk about a specific release date when we feel very comfortable with that. But at the moment, we want it to be the best game it can be, and we don't want to rush the team, and we want to talk to you guys about these features, like with the opinions feature. Actually, I think this has been a great conversation on the chat about opinions and some of the different, we'll talk about this near the end, about some of the different comments that everyone had and observations, and that's a great example of really wanting to have enough time to converse about these. And Pop, you said I actually feel me personally, I think that as I've talked to people about Knights of Honor as a franchise, obviously the first game was a while ago, it really is the kind of strategy game that's designed to be there for, I don't want to say casual players, but it's a very approachable strategy game. I encourage you to go look at the original game. It came out quite a bit ago, but it really is a game that we're designed to not get too, and you'll hear this in this feature, when we're talking about opinions today, not get too crazy deep, but get enough that you can enjoy the fantasy of being the sovereign of a nation and leading it in the medieval times. So I think you would probably enjoy it. I know there's a lot of fans in chat of the first game. Maybe they can talk to you a little bit about their adventures in the first game and how it is an approachable one. But yeah, so let's keep going on opinions then. So what was what's kind of the I know there's this whole thing where like you have these different classes and they gain positive or negative values based on, I guess, actions you're taking. But is it like happy faces and sad faces? Is it stars? Is it how does it work? How does the point system work there?
To be honest, we had that idea, but we wanted to. After all, we decided to give numeric values available to the player. You know that there are always numeric values behind the sad and happy faces, and
Right.
yeah, but we decided to show everything to the players, and the values now vary between -10 and +10, and of course, if they are below 0, you get no bonuses at all and some penalties, and vice versa. If it's above 0, no penalties at all and some bonuses apply. So you start with a random number, but for each of the classes. But this number is always somewhere around 0. It can be +2, -2, something like that.
Yeah, it's I think sometimes some of these features, it's fun to add that little bit of abstraction where you get more character into them, but it's also sometimes easier to understand a number. So I think with this one, I know when I've played it, it's like, okay, that's +3. I get how far away it is from the baseline, and it makes a lot more easy to sense. It makes very easy sense. And by the way, Pop, if you do decide to play Knights of Honor 1, I encourage you to. The game is pretty old, so there is an HD mod out there that makes it more playable on high definition monitors and screens. Because if you don't grab it, it can be a little bit tiny and not resolutioned right. So we encourage you to go look that up. I'm sure someone can post it in the chat, the link for it, or you can find it pretty easily. It just makes the game a little bit easier to play on modern hardware. So. But it is fun to play, and I've played it. I still play it, here and there now. So it's still a fun game. It's aged better than other games that are that old. So I think you may enjoy it.
But once you start playing the second one, I guess
that's my problem now too. And I don't want to say that too much because some people may get a little frustrated. I've gotten Ghost Cons before. Brad's always sitting here talking about how much fun it is to play Knights of Honor 2, and we can't play it, so that's not fair. But you're right. Once you played Knights of Honor 2, it's a little bit tricky to go back. That's for sure. So we have these different opinions, and their opinions change based on the actions. Even if it's an action like if you build a certain building or do something on a specific province, but these opinions are kingdom wide. They change. They affect every aspect of your kingdom, correct?
Yeah. They are not a local thing. They represent the reaction of the overall reaction because the action that triggers a change of the opinions can be something local. But the idea is that if you do something bad in one province, the rest of the kingdom will know about it because these are huge events and things that happen. This is a grand strategy. So it's not that you make something small and the opinions change. There are significant things. And yeah, that's the representation, the overall opinion of the people in the entire kingdom towards the rulership.
Yeah, and I saw Kings of Honor, which I think is Ivory Knight. I always get mixed up. I think Kings of Honor is Ivory Knight. He was commenting about how it's you can't really max out all the opinions, and he was wondering why. And I think a lot of it's because there's just a lot of decisions you're making in the game, and we really want the opinions to feel organic. So as you're doing different things, as different things are happening in the game world, you could attempt to max them all out, but I don't. I mean, that'd be there's no. I think there's nothing theoretically stopping you from maybe achieving that. But in the game, there's so many different things that are going on. And opinions are very organic, so you're going to see that something's going to happen where someone's going to be like a little. Like even if you go to war and the merchants are like, no, we want stability, but you kind of have to go to war to do something. The army gets happy. The merchants are a little bit, wanting more trades. They maybe want you to be at peace, and those things just kind of organically shift around as you're playing the game.
Yeah, if we have to summarize the gameplay of the opinions, it's not that you aim to max them.
Right.
It's a valid strategy. You have to maintain them as high as possible, but generally you should just try not to do something that will have extremely bad effect on your population, and you should also be able to predict what will happen. So if you declare war, this will result in a drop of opinions of the peasantry and the merchants, and it depends on who you declare war to. If the target is something that someone that has high influence over your nobility, for example, or it's the papacy and you're Catholic, of course you have additional problems. So you just have to be careful and have in mind that sometimes they can decrease.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something where you're aware of. The feature is something you're very aware of while you're playing, because there's different bonuses that you are tracking. But I also don't think it's something that you're kind of like, you're not playing the game to the opinions. I think you're really the game as you're playing, the opinions are changing around and you're aware of them. And sometimes you're like, oh, I need more food, so maybe I want to work on the peasantry right now, or my economy is dipping, so maybe I don't want to make the merchants upset. I want to try to do some things that I think will improve them. Maybe delay that war for a little bit because I want to get that economy, and then do it a little bit later. You're kind of being aware of it in the background as you're making decisions, as opposed to trying to drive those things up or down specifically based on actions. You do it in very if you make I know in one of my games I made the clergy upset with me. And I did focus on that a little bit because I'm like, okay, they're like -5 and this is bad. But when that happened, it happened because I was playing the game, and then I had to kind of, and I think a little bit rambly here, but I think that's the point of the whole feature. It's to make you aware of consequences to some decisions, so that you're actually thinking through different elements of it. I think in the first game, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but in the first game, like say for example, someone is a marshal is trapped in the prison. One of your marshals is trapped in a prison, and you're just like, whatever, I'm going to leave him there. I'll go hire a new one. It doesn't matter. There wasn't really a consequence to that. I mean, there kind of was, but there wasn't. Now, if you do that, the nobility get really upset with you. The army gets really upset with you, and you're like, crap, I can't just leave him there to rot, and I can't just dismiss him. And I could, but I'm going to pay for that. Like, it kind of makes that metagame a little more interesting, and I like that personally. I think it adds depth and character into it. So
it makes the more interesting the exile action, for example. But this is just one of the hundreds of actions that become more interesting. And when you said about the clergy problems, I will sidetrack a bit. I had a very funny game recently. Byzantium declared war to me, and they hold the ecumenical patriarch, and I'm playing with an Orthodox country. And every 5 or 10 minutes, Byzantium is like, dude, surrender, become our vessel, and I'm declining that offer, of course, because I can crush them, but it takes time. And every time I decline, my clergy is getting -4 penalty, and and they're doing this again and again. And in the end, my clergy was just crazy. So
that's funny.
There are some funny situations.
I don't know if I definitely won't claim to be an expert at Knights of Honor 1 Ivory Knight, but I think I'm decent enough. I mean, I've played enough games and won enough games, won, I guess, not lost, to hold my own. But maybe you can give me some pointers on a few things there. So appreciate that. So yeah, let's go into, so there's we've been kind of bouncing around some of these topics, so maybe we can go into a very specific examples better. So there are 5 different classes for opinions. Maybe we can walk us through what are the names of them, just to start.
Well, the names are still not so final, but in
Being
general,
hotly debated right now on the community
yeah,
forums, it seems.
indeed. But everything in the game is debatable until we release it, and even after that. So we are trying to improve everything, and that's why people that are discussing them are helping us a lot. The first one is peasantry. It's just the common folk in the kingdom, including people in the towns and in the settlements. The second one is the merchants. Then we get the army, then nobility, and finally clergy.
Yeah.
And
we have peasantry, nobility, clergy, army, which is a debated one, and merchants.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to go through each of these and talk about each of them in detail. And by the way, so I agree with that. You're right. You would definitely want to get a knight back that was very experienced, but sometimes you have a knight that's just kind of like your patrol knight, and he gets captured because you're using him to kind of delay a war, and you're like, I mean, he's not that great. Maybe I'll just let him go and hire a new one. Like, do I really want to deal with the hassle of trying to get him back? And then you're like, there's no consequence to that. And I think that's where opinions can make things a little more interesting. But you're not wrong. You definitely would want to, if you have an experienced knight, ransoming them back or dealing with that or trying to get them out is a definite thing you'd want to do. I think my comment was that there wasn't a negative for not getting him back. And to me, I always felt that broke immersion a little bit, because you think, if I left this knight here to rot in a prison, someone should be unhappy about that. And that we didn't have that functionality before, and I think we're adding that in now, and I think it adds some depth. Yeah. See, I know what I'm talking about. I know my Knights of Honor. I had to give a little bit of to flack the Ivory Knight. He can take it.
yeah, it was a test.
Yeah. So the first one we're going to talk about is peasantry. So let's get into the peasantry piece here. So tell me, what is the peasantry opinion class about?
Let's split the things to make them easier to understand. Things that affect the opinion of the peasantry and the results of the opinion. What changes in the economy of the kingdom. The major change here is food production. Because that's what peasants do in general in the medieval times. So this is very crucial. Then the peasantry opinion has the biggest effect on the rebel risk. Almost all of the opinions affect in some way rebel risk, but peasantry opinion is the major one. So if you have your peasantry, which is the biggest percentage of people in your kingdom, upset, then you can expect very quickly some rebellions to rise and so on. And of course, peasants are very often you have large part of your army being militia or peasant units, especially in the beginning of the game when you cannot afford professional army and more expensive troops. And it affects the morale and the overall combat capabilities of the peasantry troops.
Yeah, I feel like the part that always stands out to me is, I mean, obviously a lot of these features are still being iterated on, but the food production for peasantry is a big deal. I definitely, you're kind of careful about making sure that, if your peasantry gets upset, even if you're doing things that your army may like or the military part of your system may like, that loss of food production makes your army really hard to maintain. It causes all sorts of problems. So it's something you have to kind of balance a little bit. And also, I've had that exact thing happen to me where I've had a game going and peasantry was happy, and I don't remember what the decision was that I made that dropped it, but I was like doing fat and happy on food, and I made them. I did something they didn't like, and then all of a sudden my food started evening out, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta fix this. And I'm sitting there trying to like, I actually changed the buildings that I was building to get more food production until I could make them happier, and so kind of created this daisy chain of effects when I was trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that's a very major factor. One of the things that reduces the opinion of peasantry is war, and uh, difference from nobility and the army is that it doesn't matter who the war is with. If you started it, and you can always expect some drop of food production when you declare war, and when you plan your armies, how big are they? What armies can you support with food? You have to do not use your maximal production for the calculation. You have to just have in mind that there will be a minor drop. And of course, we talked in the previous streams, there are some other ways to tackle this. You can import some food from somewhere with your merchants. And what I usually do is I have some excessive food that I export before the war starts. And when the war starts, I need that excessive food, and I stop the export.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm not sure if you're watching chat. I may have instigated something I did not mean to. So now they're betting on who would win between me and Ivory Knight when it comes to a Knights of Honor challenge. And oh my goodness. Well, I'm not sure if I want to let this get out of hand, but maybe we could find a way to make a friendly competition at some point in time. I will self-admit that I would probably lose to Ivory Knight on Knights of Honor. I know the game, but I am not by any means an expert. There are games that I am an expert on. I'm not going to say which ones they are, but Alex, the person behind the camera that's posting and taunting me about our famous AoE game, there are games that I could take you to town on too, my friend. So careful how much you start throwing down there in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's a spicy 2021 already. Look at that. Everyone's having fun. It's good. So
recently we had a competition here on Knights of Honor 1. You start with in the same conditions with the same victory goal. So it's manageable. You just compete who will achieve the victory faster.
Oh, man, I would lose that. You don't want to claim. Oh man. All right, so let's go on to our next opinion class. Peasants are awesome. So the next one we have is nobility, right? The opposite of peasants to a certain degree, right? So hit me.
Yeah.
What are nobility about?
Nobility usually affects some relations between the player, the king, and the court members in the royal court. And it's stuff like we summarize it as loyalty, but there is not a single parameter that we call loyalty. There was such an idea, but it actually affects a lot of parameters. For example, cost for hiring, how susceptible they are for bribing, the cost of bribing those knights. So it's a combination of a lot of hidden kind of effects, and the positives are also in that direction. The more nobility likes you, you're almost, if you have a high nobility opinion, you're very protective from many spy actions and there are other events that may cause your knights to rebel and so on. But if you have high nobility points, you're kind of protected from that. But it's something that is very hard to maintain because as in real life, nobility is hard to please.
Right.
They for example can like the act of declaring war. If you declare war to somebody that has that they dislike, and vice versa, if the kingdom you declare war to has high influence over you, and over your nobility, then it's a problem.
Sorry, I'm smirking because now people are asking if we can make. There's a comment that implies that maybe a goat should be the prize for this Knights of Honor challenge, but I'm just gonna leave that on the sidelines for now. So I feel like I feel like it's very interesting with the whole concept of, how the espionage system kind of ties into this, and it's something we've talked about a lot. We're trying to bring the different royal court classes and kind of intertwine them into the different aspects of the game. And so the idea of, making sure your nobility is maintained, because if it drops, it becomes a little bit easier for maybe like a bribery attempt on one of your knights because they're unhappy with you. They're part of the nobility versus even if you're interacting with another nation and maybe you know how the class and the opinion systems work, and maybe you kind of get them into a sequence where they're maybe their nobility opinion is dropping by certain things that you're doing to them, and then you can go and try to bribe easier. There's a lot of different ways these things interplay with them, each other, which I think is really cool.
Without spoiling too much, there is a way to find out what are the problems in the kingdom, using, of course, the spy, but not only. And if you know some of those rumors, you can find the weak spots and try to make it even more problematic to your enemies.
Yeah, I also like the fact that, and I know Crown Authority is something we haven't talked about too much, so I think maybe we'll talk about that on another stream. But if you guys are familiar with, the Crown Authority concept from Knights of Honor 1, it's similar. That cost ramps up like this. Like, it gets really expensive if you're trying to increase it, and it can be a good way to get more income temporarily if you need to get an income boost. You spend to get money back, and the idea of kind of making the nobility better so that you can, or happier so you can reduce that cost as it ramps, is, I think, a really cool another aspect of it where you can kind of run through.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our next one here. So we have this is the highly talked about one. So Army is next, right? So we're going to talk about the military side. So I know there was some, I wouldn't say misunderstandings, because obviously we're just talking about these ideas for the first time, but maybe you can walk us through what the Army concept represents to us, and then we can talk a little bit about the debate that was happening in the community side.
Yeah, there was a discussion about whether there is such thing as an army class in a kingdom, and here we represent the people that are actually engaged with the war, the people who are on the field. Yes, they are peasantry, but not all peasants are army, and of course they have different problems, and that's why we separated them. And they also army also represents the leaders in the army who have they are actually nobility, but you know how the nobility has people in the nobility have different ideas for things, and the military folks want one thing and the rest of them want another. That's why we separated this class. And it's pretty much your active army, your actual force on the ground, and it's
what things does it affect? Like the Army's opinion, what does that affect if it gets good or bad?
It's very significant. Very important things are affected. Like if it's high, you have a discount on troops. You have high army morale. And morale is something that is crucial in the game, in the combats, in the battles. We will soon discuss it because it's a very interesting feature. But just trust me, for now, it has a very significant effect. It also, if it's low, there is a chance that some of your armies will go rogue, which can be devastating for your kingdom. Yeah, very bad. And you have the penalties like low morale, just the opposite of the bonuses. You have increased cost for troops if the army opinion is very low, and there are not so many effects, but what they create in the game is so significant that you really don't want to go to war when your army opinion is low. And if there is insufficient food, it doesn't just drop once. For example, when the food becomes negative, insufficient, but it constantly drops and it goes lower and lower. So you have some time to deal with it actually, but you don't want to just let your army starve, because this is almost suicidal in the game.
Yeah, it's an interesting debate, and I think I don't want to get too much into it during the streams. We want to keep going on the different topics, but I find that the whole concept of the army makes sense to me, because so much of the game, not I don't want to overemphasize this, but the game has a lot to deal with military conflict and marshaling your armies and going out there and going to war. There's a lot about, it's not a game where you can really just sit there and be at peace the whole time. You're going to have to go and fight. And to me, having a opinion class that's centered around that aspect of the gameplay makes a lot of sense, because if it's just woven into everything else, it doesn't feel properly balanced with how important that aspect of the game is to the gameplay. And I think I reason I'm asking about it right now, and I think it's a valid comment, especially with the idea of, I think there was some people that were talking about, like, what was it in masonry? It was like a craftsman class or whatnot. And I definitely actually agree. I think there's a lot to building up provinces as a part of the game. So that's an interesting concept there to discuss. And I don't think this is a closed topic. I think it's something that I really feel like the conversation that's happening on the forums right now about this. Again, community.knightsofhonor.com, community.knightsofhonor.com. It's a good conversation to have, and we're not set on this, but I think that's the logic there. That's the discussion there, where it's like, okay, if there's so much of the game around these particular things like economy, military, food growth, your rural court, like these pillars of the game that are very robust, it made sense to have an opinion group that was about that. So, but I think there's a lot of good back and forth feedback there. So I really appreciate the commentary.
Yeah, definitely. The comments make sense, but the army class it's probably the most interesting and significant gameplay wise. So
there's a big difference.
my gut feeling is that we have to keep it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we can also talk about how we present it, and it's a renaming thing.
Sure.
Agreed. Makes sense. So let's move on. We have the next one we have is merchants, right? So we have, well, actually, hold on. I wanted to make one more comment, because I think talking about the army, this is, and I know I said this story earlier, but it's probably one of the things that I like the most about the things that fell into the army class, which was that whole concept of a marshal being in jail and rotting away and you not rescuing him. I love that. I love the idea that now some of those actions have consequences, even if they have to kind of deal with them, because it adds that extra depth into it. So really, really cool. I like having, having a second thought about, man, that marshal rotting away, I don't want to save him just because I want him back. I may want to save him because if I don't, the military arm of my kingdom is be really upset that their army marshal that everyone knows about, the legendary, whatever his name is now captured and rotting away, and that's not okay. Like, they're not going to be happy about that.
It's even more interesting because sometimes you want to get him back, but the other kingdom just doesn't let you ransom him and take him back. So then you have a very tough choice. Should you exile him to free the night court SWAT, or should you play with one character less, but keep trying to ransom him? It's a very tough decision to make.
Yeah, definitely. So we have about 20 minutes left. Let's go into merchants next. So merchants economy is actually one of my favorite aspects of the game. So I think that's really a really fun one. So merchants, what are they about? Opinions, I should say. The merchant opinions, I should say.
Yeah, they are, I think, pretty straightforward, because gold is gold, and we're not talking about the animal, but the money. And then it affects your income and expenses which are related to trading. The basic trade income, the cost of imported stuff, export profits, um, and it's also very easy to understand what kind of things make the merchants happy and what upset them. They just like the trade to be beneficial, profitable, and everything to be calm. So they dislike war. Um, they dislike a lot of rebel activity in your kingdom, and they are very fond of you extending the trade relations with other kingdoms, signing more trade agreements, um, improving the infrastructure of the kingdom. For example, building some great structures like trade ports, um, establishing trade fair, and just doing everything you can to improve your kingdom's trade. They really appreciate it. It's if you aim to do it, it's relatively not so difficult to achieve it, and it has nice effect on your profits.
Yeah, I feel like it's something that I definitely focus on in early game when you're first getting your merchants, royal courts members put together, and then you're kind of being aware of it. You're making trade agreements, and you're watching that go up. It definitely creates some good early income, and then it kind of gets tricky to watch as you progress into the mid game because it's something that you definitely don't want to ever go into the negative. But you have to let it drop a little bit because you're going to go in to do warring actions. Obviously, the merchants want peace. And so it's kind of a balancing act there. We can use it as a spike and then maybe let it slip a little bit as you get into
You
the other
can
decisions you make. Yeah,
you can live with some drops of merchant's opinion, because
yeah,
yeah, it affects your income, but there are other sources of income, and usually that's not a thing that destroys your kingdom. So yeah,
yeah.
it's a
And we
nice
have
boost.
one more left that we want to talk about. We have the clergy, which is a little more complicated one. So tell us about the like at the high level, like what is the clergy opinion class about?
You cannot just summarize it, because it's completely
Right.
different for the different religions.
Yeah.
Um, the effects are different, and the things that increase or decrease the opinion of the clergy is different. But um, for example, Catholics are it's very crucial to maintain good relations with the papacy. Of course, that's the something that can outright destroy your clergy opinion. You have to be as nice as possible to other Catholic kingdoms, because that matters for the Catholics. And of course, this is true for almost every religion. If you have successful wars or military actions against kingdoms with other religion, this is usually approved by the clergy. Um, for the Orthodox, of course, it's very important to be in good relations with the ecumenical patriarch, but it's even more complex there, because you can have an independent Orthodox church. So yeah, it's really a very huge feature there.
Yeah. One thing
Pagans,
that I really liked about the one of the things that I thought was really unique and interesting is the whole if you guys have read the Dev Diary, we talk about how the if you're a pagan and the clergy feature works a little bit differently for opinions, and I thought this was really interesting, where it's like if you're a pagan king and you go off and fight a battle and you lose, that effect is different than it may be for other religions, where
yeah,
that could actually drop your clergy opinion because they believe that the king is endowed by the gods to go and do these things, and if a king were to lose a fight, that would mean maybe they lost favor with the gods, and so it's kind of this interesting tie into the whole some of the pagan concepts. And from what I understand, that's historically inspired, right? There's some historical influence there about why we decided to go that direction with some of the pagan opinion changes.
Yeah, it's true. It's inspired both by Vikings, and it's inspired by some uh, pagans who were more familiar with, because Bulgaria was initially pagan kingdom,
Ah,
and yeah, this was
part of your history.
it was before the period the game takes place in, but there are some memorable moments of rituals before battles.
Mm,
And it was really believed that if if a battle is lost, the reason is that the king is forsaken by the gods. He's not approved by the gods. That's the reason for losing a battle.
wow.
And yeah, yeah, so the clergy was in pagan kingdoms was much more related to warfare. Um, it had a bigger impact on the morale of the army, and it was actually judging every action of the king. This is what we try to represent in the game with the opinions of the pagan clergy.
I think
It's
it's kind of cool because it adds a lot of like a replayability to a certain degree because there's different flavors for each of the different territories you play in and how the different opinions are impacted by which part of the world you're playing in and what
Yeah.
religion those are and that's I think it's kind of fun to be like okay I'm gonna play this kingdom and I mean obviously I'm gonna be familiar with the features and know how it works but there are some different nuances that you have to kind of also learn and become familiar with. And I like that. It adds a lot of depth to me.
Yeah, religion is pretty huge in the second in the second game of the series, in the one we are
Yeah.
making, and it's we have to discuss it. It's probably something that we're still most iterating on. Um, uh, Also, Muslims have a very interesting and strongly related to clergy opinion gameplay. You have to be careful about your relations with the caliphates, because there can be different caliphs
Mm.
in the game. Um, there is a possibility for jihads to happen, and it might be required for you to join in. So it's as you said, it's a totally different gameplay depending on the region and religion and culture you play with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I actually have had a couple. It was. I don't know if we're going to keep this, and this is a good segue into the talk about how we're still definitely tuning and balancing this thing. But I know that there was a I stumbled upon this feature the last time I was playing by accident, where I had a royal court member that I had recruited and wasn't getting the perks that I wanted, and so I dismissed him to get a new one. And when I dismissed him, my clergy opinion dived, and I was like, "Oh goodness, that's not good." And then I was spent a lot of time trying. I think I dismissed, and it's because I was dismissing clerics. So it was like
Yeah,
I
yeah,
hired a cleric, and I dismissed the cleric because I was trying to get I think something to boost my books production. And then by dismissing that cleric, I lost clergy opinion by a non-trivial amount. And I'm like, oh, they did not like me firing that cleric, and
yeah.
oh crap, how am I going to make that better? And then I started getting all these other messages from, I think the Pope was pissed at me, and other things were going wrong, and I'm like, oh man, what did I do? And so then I'm sitting there trying to figure out how to make the clergy happy again, and that created this whole immersive moment. Just as I didn't want this one cleric, he had bad skills. I didn't want him. I wanted to replace him with somebody else. And the way I had done it was stupid. I had hired the cleric, and I didn't get what I wanted, so I hired another one, and that one did have stuff that I wanted, and then I dismissed the first one, and then all things went off the rails for a little while. So
Yeah.
um, obviously
It's
there's a
still in
lot
the
of
game.
balancing and tuning, but it was one of those fun immersive moments where, as a king, I'm like, "Off with you! I no longer want you in my court." And the clergy are like, "No!" And I had to go deal with the consequences of that. So it's again, it's going back to that whole story on the marshal and prison thing. I like that there's consequences that you're dealing with, but it's not. And this is, I think, something to really understand about the opinions feature. The opinions feature is not something that is designed to really be like you're not going to sit there and change opinions right then and there. You're not going to be able to buy opinions. You're not going to be able to like really modify it right away. It's something that you have to kind of work towards or have changes. You're doing certain actions. It's much more of like a slow roll, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. Probably the one most crucial thing is try not to make them too upset if it's not necessary. Just your example was very good. Just be careful for such things. And there's one we have to mention it because it's important. There's one diplomat action which helps improving the opinion. Of course, it depends on the skills of the diplomat and so on. Is he does he have royal blood? Is he the king or just
Yeah, yeah.
But even this takes a lot of time, gold upkeep to do it, and so on. So it's nothing like a magic button. It's actually very slow progress even then. So yeah, you just have to be careful.
I thought it was really interesting, though, the idea that a diplomat can be both a diplomat for external purposes, but also a diplomat for internal purposes. Like sometimes you do need that smooth talker that can go in and go and appease the people or go and appease the clergymen or whatever. And you can take that skilled diplomat that maybe has some skills that make them more efficient at influencing opinions, and you can go and use that slot for that purpose. But like you said, it's an expensive choice because by doing that, both it costs you your upkeep, but you also lose that functionality for other aspects of the game. So it's part of, I think, the strategy of Knights of Honor 2, where you're making these decisions where it's like, how am I going to use these different sorry, now they're talking about trying to remove me like I removed the poor cleric. He wasn't that poor, guys. Like the cleric skills were awful. So I mean, it's his fault for not being talented, I guess. I mean, he didn't really get the best skills. He was off to the pastures. I even though the clergy were mad, I still think it was the right choice. He didn't do me any good.
Just take a military skill next time for him and send him to.
Yeah. Or just, I guess, yeah. Okay. All right. So we got like 5 or 6 minutes left. I definitely want to get to a few questions, and then we'll wrap this thing up. So the first question we have is from Niners Gaming, who I see is on here, and it was more of a statement, but I think it was one that was worth talking about. So I'm wondering where there'll be opinions for a royal court within nobility, maybe ? And yes, I think that's exactly where the royal court effect lies. It's in the nobility section.
Yeah, pretty much, because it's very, very much related to the royal court, and we have discussed a separate parameter of loyalty of each knight and so on, but for now we don't want to do it. So it's the nobility.
Yeah. By the way, so Ivory Knight, yes, Alex is right. You can definitely put effort into trying to reskill your royal court members' skills, but that's not an easy process. It's actually quite intense to try to reskill it. So when I had dice rolled twice on this clergy person and they got 2 bad skills in a row, I'm like, do I really want to try to like do this, or do I just want to like get a different one? And so I got a different one, and he got like skills that I wanted right away. And I'm like, well, it's that decision. Do I want to pour effort into a bad set, or do I want to just take the good set and remove him and then deal with the consequences? It was a choice that I made specifically. It wasn't the right one because then I got stuck with an ad clergy for like an hour, but still, it was the decision I made. So the next question is Light Hope says, so one concern is how many tools will a player have to indirectly cause a war, since declaring war yourself is such a negative influence. And I actually share this concern to a certain degree, and it's something I think we haven't talked too much about because the opinions feature is relatively new. But there is something that I think we're balancing, which is the difference between actions that you cause versus actions that get taken against you, and how we balance out how that impacts opinions. I think you spoke about an example that I actually raised in an email recently with the team, where it was like, if you're getting hit with diplomatic messages and you're rejecting them, that can drop your opinion, but you didn't instigate that. And so how do you sit there and almost get pressure to accept the message? So it's a very, very valid point, and it's something we're talking about actively on how do we balance that out so it feels good, but then your actions do still have consequences.
Yeah, it's an interesting question indeed. There are ways to make another kingdom to declare war to you. One of them is, of course, espionage. there are ways to join in wars as a supporter and be on in a defensive pact, for example, and so on. So there are other ways, but the general idea here is that we don't want the opinions to be well, there is that way, no opinions to drop, but you just have to work for it. No, there is no such way. Sometimes you cannot make everyone happy. There are problems in the kingdom. Whatever you do, we can all see it even in the current days. There is no way to make everybody happy always. And the interesting part is how you deal with those problems. And there are always ways to compensate for them, and it's important to be one step ahead of these problems, to prepare for them, to know that they will be there, and so on.
Yeah, it's definitely a tricky balancing act between wanting opinions to have the right loop, like actually get pushed back to you the right way, versus having opinions make you hesitate to make a decision that you want to make. I think we want enough of that hesitation where it's fun, but not so much that you feel constrained. And that's where I think the balancing act comes into it, which is something we're gonna have to tune. And I think even when it comes to like when the game is out and you guys are playing it, we're going to be, supporting the game after the fact and getting feedback on how well these things work together. Maybe there'll be adjustments after the fact too. So it's a balancing act. I still think it's a good experience when it comes to like having those different thought processes when you're making a decision as opposed to having no consequences at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually the other big thing was this discussion about the naming of army. I know Ivory Knights talked about it a little bit during the stream in chat. I know that also Cyan Wolf had shared the same sentiment about maybe army should be something different or removed because of the army is raised from the nobility and the peasantry. I think it's a really good discussion. I don't want to say that it's something we're going to change our mind on, but I think it's a good conversation for us to have because, like I said before, for me, my personal opinion is that the military aspect of the game by itself is so important that it feels like if opinions didn't have a slot that was just about the military aspect of the game, the opinions feature would feel wrong. If it was just blended into the other tiers, to me, it doesn't feel properly weighted with just how much that the military aspect of the game is important. But maybe it's something that we need to rename or reposition or find a different way to present. I'm not sure. It's an active conversation we're having.
It's definitely valid, but I think that it makes it makes sense thematically. It's true that army was mainly comprised by, for example, peasants. Let's talk about a specific army of a kingdom. But those peasants that are out there fighting, they have totally different experience and desires for the kingdom's spoils. For example, let's take the people that joined the war in Vietnam. The people that were in there, they were part of the normal everyday people. Not all of them were professional soldiers. But if you ask them what they think about the war, it will be different if you ask someone who is in the States during that time. It's just different.
Being in the army is different than being able to be in the army. I think that makes a big difference. You're right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that is pretty much our stream. I'll take one quick question I saw from the chat at the end there. Al-Toro was asking about multiplayer in Knights of Honor 2. Yes, multiplayer is completely supported. We're going to be able to do multiplayer at the full game level. It's something that we put a lot of time and effort into. We're definitely going to do more conversations about multiplayer later. We've talked about it, a little bit on the different streams, but it's something I think you're going to really enjoy. I actually had the same opinion. I thought if Knights of Honor 1 had that multiplayer, it would have been a very cool aspect of the game. So it was to us a requirement for Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign to have the ability to play the game multiplayer. And like I've said multiple times, it's not going to be just 1v1. You're going to be able to play with your friends. We can't really tell you how many yet because there's a lot of question marks about features and performance and blah, 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 but it's going to be with you and some friends, not just two people. So really excited to share more details about that down the road in the future.
if we didn't have multiplayer, the game was going to be ready 1 year ago. Everything is more complex.
That's a good point. Multiplayer definitely made things. I will say this: it may not be obvious, but the design impact of multiplayer has definitely been tremendous. A lot of these features are a lot different when it's just the AI making decisions. But when a human also can use those features against another human, like diplomacy, espionage, I mean, it changes absolutely everything, and it made the game at least double, if not triple, more complicated the moment that we made that choice. But it was worth it. I think it's worth the effort. I think it's going to make the game a lot of fun. But it's I've watched the designers' heads explode. It's not the performance. I mean, obviously performance is part of it, but it's honestly most of the challenge right now is the design complexity that multiplayer brings to the table. So, but you're all worth it. We wanted it too. It was important for us. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining DevStream number 14. Man, we are just ticking along here. It was a lot of fun to have everyone on here. We hope you join us again about 4 weeks or so is our normal clip. So we'll see you. We don't have our topic yet for the next time, but I know we'll have that soon. And we'd love to have you as part of our community.knightsofhonor.com. It's where we post all of our dev diaries. We talk about these things. Like I said, we go through the questions every stream. So we'd love to have you guys join that community and be a part of it. We also have Discord, we have Facebook, we have all the great things. So we'd love for you guys to connect. We hope you've enjoyed the show today. Alex, thanks again for joining us. And today you were the solo performer. You did a good job. You did the whole thing.
Thank you. It was fun. It was fun.
It was good conversations. Yeah. Everyone have a great. Hope you had a happy New Year. Good 2021 start. And we'll talk to you next time. Thank you very, very much.
Cheers,
everybody.
See ya.